morning. I'm really happy that I get the chance to talk to everybody, and I'm amongst so many great speakers. I'm going to talk about building a magical team, and although there are many magical creatures on this slide, I do want to talk about real people and their experiences. And I'm going to put a couple of things into a fictional company, because we talk about real people, but you can't really actually talk about real people because that would be dangerous. So let's talk about some fictional company. In the company we have a wonderful engineer, and the engineer has been asked to do a lot of interviews and to review a lot of CVs, and they just think that I'm spending so much time reviewing CVs and doing all these programming tests, and I just never have time to code anymore. And then we don't get anyone qualified, and I'm wasting my time basically. And then we might have a CTO, no resemblance to actual people, who might say like, oh, I wish we would have more diverse candidates, but just no women apply, although we clearly say on our website that we want to promote equality and that we believe in equal opportunity. So there's just nothing we can do. And you'd have some candidates, and they might think like, oh, you know, there's so many places that ask me to do hours and hours of take-home tests, and they just seem to think that they're the only company that I'm applying for, and that I just want to spend all my time on it. But I have kids that I have to take care of, and when would I ever have time to do all of these? And then I did it, and I sent it in, and they rejected me, and I didn't even get any feedback as to why. So it was just a waste of my time. Or someone else might say, I had to wait like 3 weeks for a reply, and there were other job application processes I was in, so I kind of had to say no to those because I really wanted to go there, but I wasn't even sure if they got it, and I wasn't sure if I asked. They might think that I'm being pushy, so I was really confused by that. Or someone else might say, oh, I applied to this company, and I was invited to an interview after waiting for a long time for a reply, and that was really short notice, and I didn't even know how to prepare, and I felt so nervous. So those might be experiences, but there's also an experience of maybe 10% of the population that have disability and that can't even access some of the specific tools that are needed to apply for a job. So they might be confronted with a system where they can't even enter their data. So I'm Franzi, my pronouns are they, them, and I'm currently working as an engineering manager, and I've been trying to help companies before in making the recruitment process better. And bear in mind, I haven't always succeeded in that, but I want to share some things that I came up with. This is my perspective. I have a lot of privileges. I'm white, I'm able-bodied. Sorry. I have an academic background, and I'm in my 30s, so I can't speak for everybody's experience and everybody's ideas, so please bear that in mind. And it's wonderful that you have other speakers here that have a range of different experiences that you can learn from. So when it comes to usability and what we want to achieve, it's really about the quality of and the perception of your process. So anything related to your hiring process, we want the users to think that it's a great thing and it works and it does what it's supposed to be doing. Now, who are the users? Who are the users of your hiring process? Well, it's the candidates, kind of obviously, they are going through the process, but also the teams that will receive the people that you hire. So UX puts those users in the focus and wants to know what are their needs, what do they value, what are their abilities, and what kind of information do they want. So bearing that in mind and looking at the users, think about what would they need. So people in the team and people in the company, they just need to not have a lot of time spent on the recruiting. And they also want some competent and diverse team members. Those are just two examples of needs that they may have. Needs might vary from team to team. And what do the candidates want? Well, they want information about the process, They want to be prepared because they want to succeed. And they want to have feedback whether they succeed or not. They also don't want to spend as much time. So they even share a need with the other group. When it comes to UX, there are a couple of things that make UX great. It has to be useful. So it has to do the thing that it's supposed to be doing. And when we think about the recruitment process, at the end we want to be able to hire people. Or we want to see as a candidate if the company is a fit for us and get hired, or find out as early as possible that this company is not a fit for us and we don't want to be there. We want the whole thing to be desirable, which means that the company needs to be attractive to the people that apply. We also want the process to be usable, which means that it's easy to do. It doesn't put any additional barriers that are not necessary. We want it to be findable. We want people to know where can they get information. We want people to know that you have this company that might be a fit for them. And here's one of the critical things that happens when you don't think about who could be the candidates for you, and you just focus on like a cookie-cutter approach and this kind of stereotypical engineer that you might need. But when you go to places where you might not expect to find the right person for your team, and when you look for people with potential, you might find people that fit your needs that you didn't even think about hard enough before. It needs to be accessible, and that's really about the accessibility in the sense for disabled people and people with hearing impairments and visual impairments and all kinds of things to be able to use it. So think about the website that you present information in. Think about having a mandatory phone interview with someone that maybe has a hearing impairment. So think about all these things when it comes to accessibility. It has to be credible. So people have to trust the process. Both the team needs to trust because they put in their time, and the candidates have to trust that they will be fairly judged and be treated fairly. I think a couple of companies might not even know that on the back channels and on the Whisper networks, people are already talking about why their processes are really bad and are really awful, and how you can sort of get around it, or how you can even avoid this company. And this is crucial. Once you destroy that trust, it's really difficult to get it back. So building that trust is important, and I think personal connection is a really big factor in that. If you know people that have been successful in the process and they tell other people about it, or even people that haven't succeeded but they've succeeded fairly, that makes a big difference. And then finally also the valuable factor. The company needs to believe that this helps their bottom line, and the candidates need to have a good experience. So these are all things from user experience that I think we can also apply. Now let's talk about a couple of things that I tried, or things that I even succeeded in doing when trying to improve the usability of the recruitment process. Really important thing that I start with is to define the ownership of the process. Like when you have a product and you have a product owner, someone to kind of take responsibility and accountability that it works. A sort of a process owner. It could be a hiring manager, it could be an engineering manager or a CTO, but someone that at the end of the day will be on the line for the process. Finding the stakeholders and the users. So you could really go ahead and try some stuff from UX, like defining a persona of a candidate that you're looking for, or looking at who else needs to know about things that go on in the hiring process. Depending on the size of your company, there might be someone at HR that has very strict criteria on who gets to be in the company that you have to negotiate with. Maybe they have a mandatory background check, or maybe the company has a policy that you have to have a degree. And these are things that you want to know about, so you can find a way to work with it, or work around it, or try to remove these barriers. But it's important to know who is involved. And that's like kind of a fact-finding mission sometimes, depending on the size of the company. Study the market. Find out whether the salaries that you're offering are actually market rate. Because if they're not, maybe there's other stuff where you can have a unique selling point, where maybe your company has a real strong ethical basis that will convince other people, or you give people lots of opportunities. At the end of the day, a lot of people won't be able to afford the below market salary just because of all the commitments that they have in their life. So just bear that in mind, and it's just important to know where you stand compared to others. And there's so many great examples of good recruiting processes that others have that you can look at and even innovate on. So learn from the bad stuff from others, learn from the good stuff, but know where you are. Visualizing the process. This is a badly done screenshot of a Trello board, if you can't see it. But it's important, whether you use Kanban or any other way, is to just always have a good overview of where you are. How many people are currently in pipeline, who is waiting for a reply, and where are these things? Maybe we have a lot of people in this late stage. Are we still going to ask a lot of people to apply, or are we going to clog our processes with too many applications? So maybe we need to wait a little bit. Maybe we need to see from this visualization that we don't have a very diverse pool of applicants yet, and we have to change the way we go about it. So visualizing the process, I think, is a very important factor. Question things. So now we have product design and user experience, where you set yourself a goal, and from there you define everything that you do. And then you verify if what you do actually benefits that goal, and go further. So I encourage you to look up the impact mapping. Sometimes it's even useful to define some kind of SLA, service level agreements. For example, you say, oh, we want every email from a candidate to be answered within 2 business days. That might sound like a lot, but it's still difficult for people to adhere to these simple rules. But once you define them, you know what you value, you know what your goals are. You can see whether you actually fulfill them and where you have problems. Some good SLAs can also be about the diversity of the candidates. Measure these successes, get the numbers, but also get some feedback, both from people who didn't make it through the process and people who were hired, people who conducted interviews. In order to continuously improve, you need to get some data. So I actually want to say that if you don't have any idea how much time you spend and how many people you lose at each stage, or how many candidates you bring to each stage of the process, it's so hard to make improvements. And the recruiters can do such a great job of bringing much less people into your funnel if they all fail at the pairing stage because you got one person doing the pairing test that has a lot of bias and isn't checked. You will find out if you get those numbers. So do that and really scrutinize over them. Continuously improve. Maybe you want to have some retrospectives with people involved. Maybe you try new things for a while and see if they have an effect. One thing that we tried was A/B testing of our job specs. So all of the jobs where I work are already part-time or full-time. But the A/B test was, what if we put the part-time job in the header of the job description? And lo and behold, more people applied that were from different backgrounds that were maybe marginalized before. We had more diversity in applications for this job. So sometimes doing these kinds of tests can show you some stuff. This is all I have. I don't know if you have time for questions, but thank you so much for listening.